You're now diving into the fish tank.
Sitting down with Seth Living, OJ, Juice Man.
Welcome back to the Fish Tank right here on the Miami Dolphins Podcast Network. Seth Levitt, of course, with DJ Preach and OJ McDuffie looking fresh out of, I know you had an appointment today. We won't get into that, Juice, but we're glad you still made it in time. How you feeling, man?
Man, I feel bad that I had everybody waiting a little bit, man. I was in the dentist's office. My buddy, Dr. Randy Gofar, took a little longer than I thought, man, but I'm feeling better. But I'm excited, man, Big Seth. I'm excited, Big Seth. Man, we got another great guest, man, and we've been waiting for this one, man. So it's going to be a great recording.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we went, every other show we have to have a wide receiver in here, Bob. Juice always likes to have a wide receiver guest, but 2 shows ago. Yeah, I can't imagine why. But 2 shows ago we had a...
Don't forget, you win the big games with the defensive guys.
We know this.
Exactly
we know.
Right.
We know. Obviously, from what the Dolphins have been showing lately, right?
That's exactly right. So the voice you hear is Bob Baumhower, a great defensive player, not just a good defensive player, but a great defensive player in the history of this franchise. So, Bob, welcome to the tank.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're excited to have you.
I like this being in the fish tank. I'm a fisherman, and I like the territory here.
Perfect. Well, we love that you dove in. We just had your good friend AJ Due in a couple episodes ago, and we're going to talk about you guys being part of the same draft class. But we had a receiver in Brandon Marshall this past week, and so we had to bring it back to the defensive side. And you just talked about Alabama, and I'm looking over your shoulder there and can see the great Bear still looking over your shoulder, which
That's right.
Which is pretty funny. Right. But so talk about that. I mean, obviously you had a fantastic career, played under an iconic head coach. But what I was reading, it seems as if your recruitment, so to speak, to Alabama, or you finding your way there, was almost an accident. Talk about that. Talk about how you ended up there.
Right, because I didn't start playing ball until I was a junior year, in my junior season.
Crazy.
Junior year at Palm Beach Gardens High School. And then I moved to Tuscaloosa. And so I wasn't a guy that loved football, wanted to be a great football player. I didn't have that kind of vision for myself. And I was more into water and fishing, the beach and all that type of stuff. So moved to Alabama, played at Tuscaloosa High School, did not get recruited at all. I had one official visit, that was to Auburn. They didn't sign me. And it wasn't until well after the signing date, it was either March or April, where Coach Bryant was watching some film of their top offensive line prospect for that they had signed. And we had played the school that this guy went to in the state playoffs. By the end of my senior year in high school, I was improving, getting better. This guy was their top offensive line prospect, and he had a really tough night with me. Coach Bryant saw that.
He had a tough night.
Yeah, he had a tough night. And so Coach Bryant saw that film and said, well, okay, we signed this guy. Where's the guy that's whooping his tail right now?
Right.
And so I had one scholarship offer, and it was Vanderbilt. I went up to Nashville, got a coach named Charlie Bradshaw, who had played for Coach Bryant at Kentucky, was the defensive line coach. They offered me a scholarship. I called home, told mom and dad I was going to sign. I loved Nashville, had a good time. They said, don't sign. The coaches just called from Alabama. They want to talk when you get back. So I flew directly back to Tuscaloosa from Nashville. There were 7 coaches waiting in a station wagon at the airport.
7 of them.
Acting really nervous, and said, hey, do you mind going to see Coach Bryant? Now, nobody talked to me the whole year. Nobody recruited me. So I get this reception in Tuscaloosa at the airport. And they took me to see Coach Bryant, and he apologized, said, we hadn't shown you any respect, didn't do this, didn't do that.
Wow.
But I want you to play for Alabama. And obviously I jumped at the opportunity, and it was one of them fortunate things. Again, mom and dad had put me in that situation by moving up there. So things worked out, and I went to the University of Alabama, and Coach Bryant continued to affect my life in a really positive way for a long time. Still does, actually,
But let's talk about 1977. The Dolphins take AJ Due in the first round. They select you in the second round after I think both of you guys had played with Coach Shula, worked under Coach Shula at the Senior Bowl. And Trust me, I know what it's like to move from legend to legend. You know, me going from Joe Paterno to Don Shula.
Right.
You know, talk about your transition from Coach Bear Bryant to Shoes. And, you know, even though, you know, you're used to tough leaders, I mean, it's my understanding early on, you know, you were asked to move from D tackle to nose, and you weren't too happy about that. Let's talk about that transition a little bit.
You're 100% correct. And I was excited as heck to have the opportunity to play for Coach Shula in the Senior Bowl. And I think that probably had more to do with me, you know, going in the second round than anything. I started off the season supposed to be a pretty high pick, got hurt, played hurt the whole year, and my stock went down. Went to the Senior Bowl, had healed up, but being able, both AJ and I feel that being at the Senior Bowl was the reason we ended up with the Dolphins, which is obvious, but. When we got to Miami, the Dolphins had gone 6-8 the year prior. Coach Shula was actually having 3-a-days, and
we heard about those,
yeah, 3-a-days.
Crazy.
And I played defensive, what would be considered a defensive end today with Alabama, right? And so I get to Miami, and they were short at the defensive line position, and AJ and I were basically going to be expected to contribute our first year. They moved me to nose, and Manny Fernandez, that was his last year. And Mandy comes up to me and goes, "Rookie, I feel for you." And they moved me to nose. That was the start of the end for me.
Thanks, Manny.
I'm having to hear all this negative stuff. And then you had Larry Little, you had Jim Langer and Bob Kuchenberg as the middle three. They destroyed me every practice. I mean, and I'm trying to learn the nose position. I was not a happy camper after a couple of weeks. Coach Mike Scary, who was my coach, was our defensive line coach at the time, kind of got a vibe that I wasn't a happy camper, pulled me aside, had a conversation with me, said, "Look, I think you could be a good defensive end, but we think you can be a great nose. We need you to master that nose position." And what happened is I did some thinking, and I made a commitment to be the best I could be at that position based off of what I'd learned from Coach Bryant. And then with Jim Langer and with Larry Little and with Kuchenberg and with Coach Arnsbarger and Coach Scary, I worked really, really hard at learning that position. And by the time preseason got there, I was thinking I couldn't play the position because I just couldn't get it done in practice. Then the first preseason game, I had a couple sacks real quick, and it didn't take me long to figure out that the guys I was practicing against every day were about 3 levels above anybody I was playing in the NFL.
You weren't going to see anything like that the rest of your career.
It was crazy. I mean, so I'm playing against these centers, and back then most of the teams had four-man lines. So these guys weren't used to having somebody like me. I'm 6'5", and can run a little bit, and I'm more of a tall, angular kind of guy. And these centers were really made for work the even man line and getting the backside linebacker. They weren't used to having somebody on top of them. And so my rookie year, I had a blast, and most of it was because Langer was kicking my butt in practice, and Cooch was kicking my butt in practice, and Larry Little was. In fact, we used to get into it in practice. And I remember one time we were into it, and I heard one of the coaches say, let him go, because they liked seeing that fire. They liked seeing a little bit of intensity there. And, we ended up going 10-4, should have made the playoffs. And then that kind of restarted the whole playoff thing again. And we had a pretty good run there for a few years.
We don't do a fish tank episode about any player who played in the 80s without giving Kim a little bit of a call, because he's a great storyteller and seems to have been in the middle of all the stories. One of the things that Bo said was, he said, ask Bob about his pet lion.
Oh, okay.
And that's all he said. He doesn't give me anything else. What is he talking about?
Well, and it was on one of our off days. I think Kim was with us. It was Kim and AJ and a few of us. We went up to Lion Country Safari.
Okay.
And so we go through, and you know how you drive through Lion Country Safari, sure. And then at the end, there's a petting section. So we're in the petting section. They find out we're dolphins and they want to start taking pictures. So they start taking pictures of us with some of these lion cubs.
Oh boy.
And I asked the question. I said, well, what kind of pets would these make? And I'm, what am I? I'm 24, 25. I'm bachelor. I got no worries. And they said, they gave me a price. I think it was like 500. No, they said they make great pets. And I said, well, what do they cost? And they said $500. I gave them my phone number. I said, call me. So they call me.
Oh, jeez.
And I bought a lion. Lion Country Safari, I thought.
They tell you don't feed them. They don't say anything about taking them home, Juice. I just didn't think anybody would want
to. Well, hey, So, and then, hey, at the time, AJ, a guy named Rusty Chambers, and I all lived together in Village Oaks Apartments in Miami Lakes on Cowpen Road. I don't know if you guys know where that's at. It's right up the road from where Coach Shula's hotel is. And so the guy delivers the lion to training camp. And there's some reporters there taking pictures. And the next morning, there's a picture in the Miami Herald with me holding this lion cup up in the air. And it says Bob Baumhower holds up his new pet lion from Lion Country Safari. And so ends up, I get a call from Lion Country Safari. Said, you didn't buy that from us? I said, yeah, I do. Yes, I did. And they said, well, we don't sell to the public. I said, well, I bought the lion. Turns out there was a little underground thing going on there.
Like, where did I get it?
No. And you could buy those lions all day long for like $100 because I guess lions breed well in captivity. And so anyway, I named him Oscar. He lived with AJ and Rusty and myself. I took him to practice once in a while. Took him back to Alabama, and he's growing up. My mom and dad fall in love with him. They want to keep him. I read a story in a newspaper about a lady in Dothan that had a tiger. And it's kind of like when you buy a new car, you start seeing that car on the road. You don't notice it until you buy one and you see it all the time. Same thing with owning a lion. I start seeing where a lot of people, they own these exotic cats. So this lady had a lion in Dothan, Alabama. I mean, a tiger, and she bought another tiger. They both turned on her and killed her. And so all I can think about is Oscar getting bigger and eating my parents,
Right.
So,
yeah, that's not a good deal.
Man.
Yeah. So I made a decision a little later. And actually, it was in combination with the grand opening for Bachelor 3. It was in 1979. So I drove back to South Florida with Oscar. I donated him back to Lion Country Safari.
Really?
Ended up in where the heck? I can't remember exactly the town he ended up. It's the middle of the state, and in a little petting zoo. But I had a lion for a while, and he was a lot of fun. And I did have some fun with him in practice.
And what were your teammates thinking when you come in to practice with like we've heard about the alligator in the shower story with Coach Shula.
Right.
Bring a lion to practice. The hell is that?
Yeah, and it was an experience. I mean, young and dumb, but I had fun with it.